Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining me to another Black Desert guide video. My name is Wilkie, and today I'm going to be giving you guys a roadmap slash progression guide, if you will. This one's specifically designed or aimed at new players or players who just started the game and have like 20 to 30 hours into the game. Also, this is mainly for NAEU. I have a couple people messaging me that they play on C servers, or I think South America also has a newer, fresher server than we have. So there might be gears or items you don't have yet. In this case, you either have to check out some of my old guides or simply post a comment, and I'll see if I can adjust the gear recommendations I'm going to be making towards your current server situation. Anyways, without further ado, we're going to be using a tool called BDO Planner, which is basically a community-made tool that allows you to test out builds, so there's not going to be any in-game footage. Also, I'm going to be posting the links to all the builds and all the links from the BDO database I'm going to be using into the description, so you can check those out. You don't necessarily have to watch the whole video. It's going to be in segments, basically like starter gear, mid-game gear, like how you can transition, and then something gearing towards endgame. Also, on a quick side note, personally, this is just a personal thing, but as a new player at this point, do not enhance. Sell everything you get from events, farming, login rewards, whatever. Just sell it and straight up buy the things I mentioned. Unless you're really looking for endgame gear, which is like probably 3 to 4 months in if you really dedicate yourself. Do not worry about enhancing stuff yourself. It's gonna be a pain in the ass, and you're gonna be cheaper and much quicker if you just buy said items on the marketplace. I'm also gonna be listing a rough estimate of silver you need to buy certain pieces, or basically the whole set. So yeah, basically that's about it, and we're gonna dive right into the starting gear set. So, as I said, this is generally applicable for any class. I'm currently using the Musa class as a base loadout, but it works pretty much for any other class. There might be nuances for certain classes that could potentially use something else, but this is an all-rounder build. It's very cheap, and this is gonna be working just fine. So first of all, I have to do a little bit of explaining here, because you see 3 different armor pieces, or set pieces, in this picture, and the reason for that is these are basically the 3 options that I would recommend you choose or you go for as a new player. The first one being Heave, which basically has an HP set bonus along with a very good DP stat in general. Then you have the Hercules set, which pretty much shares the same stats as Heave does, but instead of the HP passive, you're gonna get a weight limit. Now this is, new players might not be familiar with that, but weight limit is basically determining how long you can grind in certain places before you either have to check to your horse, storage, or even go back to town. So getting a free boost into that will allow you to grind more easily, or I should say longer periods of time without having to go back. And the last one is Granil, which is my personal favorite after the rework. Granil is, in my opinion, the best set you can go for. While it boosts a little bit less DP than Heave counterparts, it has a very good set effect for both 2 and 3 pieces, which in my opinion makes this the best all-rounder starter set you could go for. But the choice really is yours. You can pick any of these 3 sets, just make sure to stick to this, so don't start mixing up 1 piece Granil, 1 piece Hercules, 1 piece Heave. That's not gonna work. Just pick one you like and then just stick with it. Really, it's not gonna make a huge difference. It's more about quality of life. Granil gives you a bit more AP along with HP, so it's gonna make you a bit more durable and give you a bit faster grinding speed. Heave getting you the most HP, so you're gonna be even more durable. And Hercules is just purely quality of life, so there's that. Now you can see this item, which is called Dim Magical Armor. This is a quest reward, and this one is a very, very powerful quest reward that I very highly recommend getting. Now, in order to get this item, you have to do a quest line, which is called While Preparing for Media. As I said, I'll be posting the links to that into the description, so I'm not going to talk about the whole quest line because it's fairly easy. You just start the quest and you follow it, so it's relatively simple. But this piece of armor is going to get upgraded later on, and it's very powerful. As far as accessory choices go, this is probably where a lot of people will have a different opinion, but these things here called root tree and rings necklace and belt are purchasable from the weapons vendor in Calcium. These are 300,000 apiece, so this is very cheap accessories you can get guaranteed. You don't need amity, you don't need any other resource, you just need 300,000 silver per piece. So these 4 pieces will just be 1.2 million in your set. The reason why I recommend these pieces are because they have an insane amount of accuracy for starting gear. So just by using that, you easily, well, the belt is a bit of a, I guess, stray off, but generally the necklace and the rings itself, they give you 16 per piece per ring, so that's 32, and then another 24, and as you can see, we're at about 186 total accuracy with very minimal gear. This is a very straight up good starting setup. If you have this amount of gear, you can grind almost all places in Media. Calphion should be no problem at all. Media, with the exception of maybe Elric Shrine and Sawsons, you can probably grind all the spots there as a breeze as well. Maybe even some Valencia spots, I'm not sure about that. But this is a very basic loadout, and if you just go straight up buy those, it's around 50 million per armor piece, so you're like 45 million, and then the 2 weapons, which is going to be around 75 million in silver, and you're pretty much set. As far as the weapons go, pretty much Rosar is the best in slot, non-boss hand. You can, main hand weapon you can pretty much get at this point. It has 2 slots, good AP ratio, decent accuracy, and it's very readily available, so in my opinion, this is the best thing you should get. Also, I'm opting in for the AP offense. Now, a lot of people are going to be, oh, you need accuracy. This is exactly why we're using those accessories instead of anything else. While we sacrifice a little bit of AP compared to counterparts, we're getting a shit ton of accuracy for that. That pretty much allows us to use the ultimate, or in this case the Whitehorn Bow, which is the AP offense. Should you still hit or miss basically targets in PvE, you can always opt in for the accuracy offense, but generally with this amount of accuracy you should be totally fine in PvE. Now for a small transition, we're still pretty much in the starting region of the game, maybe like another 10-15 hours you spend into the game. As you can see, the armor still hasn't changed, but what has changed is that the dim magical armor, the green one, has changed into yellow. Similar to that, if you just go into the database and click onto this one, it'll pretty much guide you through the whole quest line, and you just have to click your way through if you really need to, because this quest is very easy. You can pretty much just go straight through it in-game, so there shouldn't be any issues clearing that one. This piece of armor is incredibly potent for new players. It has very high DP, it comes with a plethora of very good stats, HP, accuracy, which is very rare for an armor piece, or I think it's pretty much the only armor actually, or chest piece that has accuracy on it. This is incredibly powerful. I highly recommend getting that. Now, as far as armor goes, nothing has changed. Weapons are still the same as well. What has changed though is we're currently using the Asula set. As far as Asula goes, if you don't know, these items are obtainable from random drops in the world. You farm Abandoned Iron Mine in Media, Elric's Temple or Shrine, and the Helms. Similar to the dim armor, if you don't know where these are to be found, check the video database. I will put a link into the description. It pretty much has everything listed there, or you can just look them up in-game. It's very easy to get the knowledge of those. I just swapped to a 5 set because, as you can see, the 5 set bonus is 20 accuracy again. So the problem with these accuracies, if you just compare this ring, these 2 rings, the Root Treant, while only having 3 AP, has 16 accuracy, and the Asula, while having 7 AP and 2 DP, has absolutely 0 accuracy. So you're kinda cutting yourself short of some accuracy in return for more AP. But if you compare the first build, I have 186 accuracy and 120 AP. So we're gonna trade 10 accuracy for 16 AP, which is a fairly good trade-off. And this is pretty much a very safe and durable transition from the starting gear to a little bit of an upgrade, which doesn't really cost you any money because all of these items are obtainable through farming. You can't buy them, so you have to farm them, and you should pretty much have these items by now in general anyway. Looking at a bit of a more, I guess, intermediate gear score or set of equipment. Now, I personally, as I said, I like Grenell. I think it's the best set you can probably go for as a starter because of all the benefits. So I decided to go full Grenell at this point. As you can see, the upgrades turned into Pry. You don't have to do that, but it's gonna help you to survive a little bit more. It's gonna make you a bit more tanky, and generally the cost for these upgrades is not too high. In my opinion, if you ask me what I do, I usually jump from plus 15 directly to Try. This is quite a bit of a stretch for a new player though, because Try items are relatively expensive. They're quite hard to get by yourself if you're new to the game. So I personally recommend, if you have trouble surviving or killing mobs, try to get to the next step, which is Pry after 15. If you're fine clearing with your current gear, which is maybe plus 15 or even lower, then I highly suggest do not waste money on upgrades. If you're fine grinding the way you are, stack up money and directly go to Try. This is gonna give you the biggest bang for your buck, because the Try upgrade basically has double the value on it. And it's still fairly cheap compared to the amount of time you'd have to spend enhancing that and the frustration you're gonna avoid doing that. So this is just on a side note. As I said, generally I picked Grenell. Still 3 pieces. I kept the magical armor. Accessories are unchanged. So what has changed is, I assume by now you're 56, so you're gonna be using your awakening weapon. Plus 15 should be fine. Pry is just as fine. We still use the AP offhand. We took quite a bit of a deep hit onto the accuracy. Now, the reason why our accuracy is that low is because we're using another quite recently released quest item called the Black Abyssal Weapon, or in this case the Blade, which is pretty much the equivalent to a Pry main hand weapon. However, it has almost half the accuracy a regular Pry main hand weapon has. So you kinda have to determine whether or not this is something you can go for. This weapon is free if you're level 55 and do the quest line. Similar to the dim magical armor, this is what the page on the database looks like. It's the NPC named Kona. You just do the quest line and you get this weapon. What's even better is you can swap this weapon every week for free. So if you decide to reroll to an alt, you don't have to do the quest line again. You just go to a certain NPC and you want a different weapon. However, as I said, very low accuracy. This might be a bit of an issue in PvE. I'm not going to be talking about PvP because at this point in time, with that gear, you're not going to go very far in PvP. So your focus at this point is definitely to PvE, to get yourself going, get the ability to farm steadily and fast so you can rack up money, which you can then use in order to either buy or upgrade your new equipment. Personally, I don't really like the Black Abyssal Blade, because if you look at that, we're gonna have a Pry Roser Blade, so we're gonna lose 3 AP, but we're gonna get 31 accuracy. So really, this is something you have to determine by yourself. If you don't have any issues killing mobs because of your accuracy, the Abyssal Blade will do just fine. If you do have issues hitting enemies, then I suggest just stick to the regular Roser main hand, because it still is the best thing you can possibly get. And the Pry weapon is usually around, I think, 30 million-ish. So that's compared to this build, you're gonna have an extra 30 million, which is not too much really. Generally, I recommend going that route, but if you're a bit of a cheapie or you don't exactly know, do you really like the class? Meh. Then I'd say go with the Abyssal Weapon. It's not bad by all means, it just pretty much comes short of accuracy. Now this is a very early mid-game build. You can possibly, really, if you dedicate yourself, let's say 50 to 100 hours playtime, you can probably get this fairly quickly. Now jumping into something a bit more advanced. Now you can see this is probably another, I'd say, 100 hours into the game in. Basically what has changed is my armor is now full Try, my weapons are full Try. The dim magical armor is still there, the accuracy, the accessories still haven't changed. Now this is probably where a lot of people will jump me and they're like, oh, you can use certain accessories. Yes, you could. But the gain you would get from getting like a dual Mark of Shadow, which is like 70 million apiece, I don't think it's worth it, because you can just stick that money into your main hand, your offhand, or even your Awakening Weapon, and you're gonna get much more AP for a similar value. So personally, I wouldn't touch my accessories until everything else is at least duo or personally try. Honestly, this gear you're currently seeing on the screen is what I was using to grind Pirate Island on my Musa at 57. So this is by far not very great gear, and I farmed there like a breeze. I didn't take too much damage, I cleared the mobs very quickly. With the exception of jungle, I was pretty much able to grind all the locations by myself fairly easy. This is pretty much a great point to be in the game, because this allows you to grind almost all the spots very efficiently, while you're still not completely blowing out all the silver you've been getting. As I said, purchasing these items, you might not always have them on the market, but really, if you dedicate a day or two, you should be able to get most of these items just by simply bidding on them. On another side note, I would not recommend pre-ordering items. Unless you know what you're doing, or unless the item is incredibly hard to get, I would not bother pre-ordering items, because these are usually popping up, I don't know, 5 to 10 pieces a day. So if you really put your time into, give it a week, and you should be able to buy all of these items without any major issues. This is pretty much all I can give you about mediocre or medium gear. As I said, you're still not going to be very good in PvP, so we're not going to bother with accuracy offhand. It still is all about PvE and how to get more money as quickly as possible. So going into the last part of the video, I don't think really that at this point you need a guide to tell you what to go for, because probably if you're reaching these kind of gear scores, you're probably well to 300, maybe 500 hours into the game. So you should have a plethora of knowledge by now, but just for the sake of completion, we're gonna be taking a look at I guess, transitioning from medium to endgame gear. Now this is by far still not battle ready. You're still gonna get wrecked in PvP left and right, because people run around with 500 gear score easily, 510, 20, 30, 40. You're gonna be meeting those people quite frequently. So if they decide to PK you, you're probably just gonna die unless you're a Mystic. I don't recommend rolling Mystic, but just saying that some classes have a lot of an easier time than others. But generally, with that amount of gear score, you're absolutely good in PvE, with the exception of like Histria, Akman, like very high-end PvE places. You should be fine absolutely anywhere else. Pirates, Fogans, Nagas, Crescents, Fadas, and like almost all of the spots you will be able to grind with them. As you can see, something has changed. I finally swapped out the magical roaring armor. The reason for that is because we swapped to 2 boss pieces, one being Bex, which is still, for most classes, best in slot, and Muskins. I know this Oregon's out, and there's a lot of a debate if Muskins is actually worth it. By far, Muskins is not a bad item, really. If you ask me what 2 boss armors to get first, I'd say Beg and Muskin. Period. They're fairly easy to get at this point. They're doing absolutely fine. Muskin is still not shit. Muskin is still much better than Jayeth is, so this is a no-brainer, really. So in order to get back our 5 AP set bonus, I decided to get the Granil armor, so we don't lose that set bonus. Obviously try at this point. Other than that, we also changed our accessories completely. Now, these are options you could potentially be taking. Dual Mark of Shadow, as I said, is around 60 to 70 million. A little bit of AP boost, but fairly expensive, and you're gonna be upgrading those soon anyway. Tri-Red Corral Ring is probably the best budget accessory you can get in BDO. Very high gear score. A Tri is, I think, 15 million if you buy it off the marketplace. It's super cheap, and it comes with 7 AP, 6 DP, so this is a very awesome accessory. And you can also just slap them and try to make them yourself, really, because they're fairly cheap. And I was running, I still run actually one of these in my setup because I'm not 61 yet, so I think it's probably the best budget accessory you can get in the game. As far as earrings go, you have the choice between Blue Corral and Witch's Earrings. A Tree Blue Corral is, I think, 100 or 90 million or something. It's a tad bit weaker than a Try, which is Earring, but it's definitely cheaper to get it. Really, a Try, which is Earring if you just check it, is 11 AP compared to 10 AP, so there's not a lot of difference between those two. It really is a personal preference whether you want to go max AP or be a bit cheaper on certain parts. Now, you could argue that at this gear score, you could start PvPing. I'd say potentially you could, but I wouldn't recommend it. If you so desire, you probably have to swap out your AP offhand for an accuracy offhand, or the other option is the dreaded and infamous Red Corral earrings. Now, they're a lot more expensive than Witch or Blue Corral. They're insanely hard to get because they don't drop very often, so unless there's like an event going on, getting your hands on a Red Corral earring is quite a bit of a pain. So, accuracy offhand is probably your better bet in that regard. As far as belt goes, I went for a Tree Spirit belt. It is fairly expensive, but it's not as expensive as Basilisk's belt. And a duo is, I think, 250 million, and that's still a very doable place to be in. It's not too shabby. And we went for a Duroceros necklace, a very budgety AP necklace. Alternatives would be the Schultz necklace, which is this one. Getting it to try is quite a bit of a pain, so duo, Azula has 11 AP. I'm not really a fan of the Schultz necklace, so personally I'd recommend going Seraphs. But that's it. As I said, still AP offhand, Green Awakening Weapon. And if I were to rate the boss items in terms of priority, Zarka is by far the most important boss item you have to get. In all the things, in all armor, weapon, and even accessories, Zarka is by far the thing that outshines anything else. Highest accuracy in the game, 2 gem slots, 3 attack speed, extra damage against mobs, extra damage against all species, highest AP. This is just one hell of a beast of a weapon. Really, if you're not sure where to spend your money at, go for this one. This is a no-brainer. This is absolutely what you should be focusing on before anything else. Obviously my opinion, but just looking at the stats and how beneficial Zarka is, because it also allows you to use different gem slots, it makes it a lot easier to cap out on attack speed and crit. There's just a whole list of benefits Zarka gives you, so really go for that. Last but not least, just for shits and giggles, this is something your endgame build could be looking like. Right now we have like 531 gear score, which is not absolutely beast level, but you're pretty much up there, probably in like 5% of the player base, maybe 10% of the player base. I'm not entirely sure how many people run around with super high-end gear like 550, but this is definitely soft cap. This is very, very high-end gear. You're not going to be getting that anytime soon, so this is something you should be working for, but don't expect it to get in like a month or two. Now we have full Tad boss armor. I just switched to Orgons for shits and giggles. Muskans, as I said, works just as fine. Try Crescent Ring of the Guardian. Kaposha, this is something you'll be getting at 61, which I assume if you run this type of gear, you're probably 61, or you're a very efficient life skiller. We're running two 3 Red Corral earrings to boost our accuracy up. I still use the Tree Spirit belts. As I said, alternatively, you could be using a Basilisk's belt at this point for a little bit more AP, but a little bit less accuracy. It's just a personal preference at this point, really. I don't like Basilisk's belt because they're insanely expensive, but that's just me. Try Ogre Ring. This is probably the main hurdle for a lot of people getting this one. I think market value is like 2.8 billion. Good luck getting that. They're not being sold very frequently. There's high pre-orders on them, so those are pretty hard to get. But you know, this is endgame gear. And we're gonna be running full Tad boss weapons, as I said, Zarka. Best in slot, very important. Second priority item, at least as far as weapons go, I would say is Kudum. Insanely helpful in PvE. Can still do fairly good in PvP as well, so it's not like it's only a PvE item. And boosts a hell of a lot gear score. It's a very good all-rounder item in general, and very nice to have. And then obviously Dandelion. There is a bit of a discussion whether or not Dandelion is actually worth it or not. personally, I think it's still the best in slot. Awakening Weapon. Some people could argue that the human damage from the blue one is gonna outweigh the cost of Dandelion. Yes and no, but this only applies to PvE or certain mob groups. So really, if you're aiming for endgame, this is probably something you're gonna be looking for. I think this sums it up. This is probably gonna be a long ass video again, but as I said, this is pretty much only stand for NAEU. If you're on any of the other servers and you don't have certain gear choices, feel free to poke me and I'll help you out, or try to help you out, giving you certain gear choices and things to think about. Anyways, this is all. Feel free to comment and let me know what you think about this, and hopefully I will catch you guys next time as well.